Yo, hi, hello everybody. Yeah, I just thought I'd have a little random chat, um, stick some ideas together, about some stuff that's happening in my life at the moment. Having some good times, really. I think life is starting to really get good. Um, yeah, I've uh, I've been doing my counselling course, which is in Laidlaw College, and really enjoying it. Um, getting getting into some assignments. At the moment, I'm doing an assignment on formation, which is basically the it's just about how a Christian grows, how I go from how a person goes from being a new Christian maybe to being a better Christian. Um, so yeah, it's been quite a journey for me. You know, but yeah, just enjoying life. Like life is good at the moment. We got the sun shining here in New Zealand. Birds are singing in the trees. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just feel very positive because I've had this massive feeling really in my in my body, in my being. Uh, I kind of I yeah, just I've probably gone into it a little bit before in one of my other videos. It's been quite an amazing journey for me. I think I spent a lot of my life seriously disconnected from my physical self. Um, I kind of might be inclined to call it like maybe well, it definitely was a kind of a traumatic, some sort of trauma, but I think I spent an awful lot of my life in shock. Now I don't know whether it's necessarily all related to the death of my dad, which happened when I was 6. Um, I think more some of it may have happened before that because I had my mum apparently fell out the back door of the house when she was pregnant with me. Um, so whether or not that had a significant effect on me, um, but I've never been physically. Let's just say I've never been physically at home um, with this body of mine. Never felt really connected properly. Probably that's the best way of putting it. I've never felt like as if I've been my mind, body, emotions has all been. I've never felt like as if I've had full control of my body. Like I've never felt empowered in my body. I've always felt like as if this body of mine wasn't able to do the sort of things that I wanted to do. Like sluggish or clumsy. Like double-minded, maybe. A delayed response when people would say things. I always seem to be kind of like sitting there. It took me a long time to react. Yeah, so I've had this kind of pretty painful way of living because you know as a child I think I was never really able to get a positive response from people. um you know I don't know, how would I describe it? People seem to maybe back off from me a little bit when I kind of turf up. And left me very needy. um you know I'd end up hurting people with kind of nasty comments, almost as a way of trying to get attention. Um, yeah, it's big stuff to talk about. Yeah, I just didn't seem to be an attractive person. Maybe that's a simple way of putting it. Um, Apart from, you know, even when people did find me attractive, I didn't believe them, and so I almost couldn't let somebody in close to me, um, because I wasn't there, I wasn't here, I wasn't kind of physically available, like people trying to move in and live in a house that's kind of half built. I didn't feel strong enough to kind of support relationships, people in relationship. I just didn't. As soon as somebody came close to me, I'd start to feel a bit wobbly, and I'd have to kind of, my discomfort would kind of force a disconnection, one way or the other. So apart from finding it difficult to be me, I think it was impossible to be around me, because I think, I was like a bit of a walking wound. Um, it's like, I think everybody knows people who are really traumatized by life. People who've had, difficult childhood. It's just like, you come near. It's like a bark, an injured dog or something. You come near them, and it's like, rawr, there's growling going on. And I think I don't like to say it, but I think I was a growling dog. Really, I was one of these growling people that nobody could get near to. Um, you know, Alcohol played a massive part of my life, and maybe helped me to kind of get past some of the social interaction situations. Disinhibited me to some extent, so that I didn't end up completely isolated and, not able to go out. But I mean, I certainly had some serious social anxiety, and it wasn't inappropriate social anxiety. I just feared people, because when I'd be standing right beside somebody, I didn't feel that I had a container that I could stand in. I felt vulnerable, and so out of that vulnerability, I make other people feel uncomfortable. So eventually, kind of move away. Yeah. So 53 years later, I'm studying, doing this counselling course, and I read this bit by Brian Thorne, where he's talking about, a spiritual discipline. He's a counsellor, he's a Christian counsellor who writes books, Mearns and Thorne got some, I'm sure he's got books of his own, Brian Thorne. But he has this, he's talking about some spiritual disciplines that he had in his own life, and one of his spiritual disciplines was to kind of go for a walk and, ask himself, was there any part of his body that he was rejecting, any part of his body that he kind of, rejecting, but and that's one of 5 different things he's doing. But I went out for a walk that afternoon, and I just said to myself, so wow, I just realized I'm actually rejecting every single part of my body. I'm rejecting myself physically. Totally, I hadn't got a good word to say about my physical self. I didn't like my face. And even now, as I'm looking at myself in the big screen, I'm kind of struggling a little bit, but I'm conscious that I'm being negative towards myself, and so I'm adjusting that now as I'm getting conscious of it. Yeah, it's an old pattern, but I think this self-rejection physical thing, it's really been lifelong. I think since I was a baby, since I was a child, I just didn't laugh. People talk about being out of body. I think I just didn't really manage to land into my body. I didn't really, everybody knows what it's like when a child is kind of getting it upset and getting a bit wound up, and know, and somebody around needs to usually try to calm them down. If it's an infant, they need a lot of reassurance. They need a lot of cuddles and hand holding and, you know, reassurance, and that, and eventually a child will settle. And I think whatever it was with me, I just wasn't really coming into my body, you know. I know I said that before, but it's just the reality of it. I don't know, you know, I'm not sure how common this is in the world, you know, but, you know, all I know is that it's been really painful, and it's been a horrible place to live out of, and I've spent 90% of my time trying to people please and trying to eggshell around people, you know, whereas they've been probably eggshelling around me, and it's just been fucking painful, you know. It's hard to explain, but like, you know, like, you know, there's just, to me, like, turning up at a soccer game was pointless, you know. It was like, yeah, I could try and sell myself off as some sort of second-hand workshop or something like that, and maybe with an obscene amount of work, you know, and training, I could kind of pass myself off as a team member. But like, it was just fucking hopeless, you know what I mean? I didn't want the fucking ball because I didn't know what to do with the fucking ball. I didn't, you know, I was a hatchet job really on people, I suppose, if I was playing in the back, because in a way I kind of resented the fact that these two people could actually kick the fucking ball in the first place. So all I wanted to do was take out my suffering on them, and you know, I was a kamikaze defender at times, you know, because basically, well, apart from the only thing that I could do, but I wasn't, you know, I wasn't playing fair, because I didn't really feel that life was playing fair with me. So I didn't really give a shit what people thought, because my life was so miserable that you know, yeah, I didn't really give a shit, because, you know, I looked at all these people that could walk around and seemed to have bodies that they were connected to, and the pop balls, dribble balls, and, you know, sure, like, people tell you that, like, you know, hang on, these people have done obscene amount of training and blah 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 and all the rest. But actually, I never really thought that. I could see people just playing football on the beach, and I knew by the way that they were, you know, just happy in their nappy, literally, like, you know, even kids playing on a beach. I knew that there was something that was missing in me, that I, you know, and thank God in a way that I studied medicine and got into my, you know, got to know my vision, saw the difference in my eyes, saw that there was perhaps a way forward here. You know, why is one eye stronger than the other? Why is, you know, what does that mean? What imbalance does that show up in my body? So I started to use my body, my, you know, the symmetries in my body, like this eye stronger, this eye weaker, you know, toes like with a gap, or a gap like that in my toes, and I started to but I started to kind of look at these symmetries in my body as guiding tools, to kind of help me to land, to find my way home into myself, into the real me, you know. Yeah, and so I ended up in around 1998. I went to a lady called Ursula Selwood, and she said to me, like, she told me that she felt that I was denying the death of my dad, which happened when I was 6 years of age. So if I went for, you know, 20 years of counselling later, 22 years of counselling later, I'm finally kind of managing to come to where I've been trying to get to, you know. A lot of counselling, a lot of money, a lot of hours on tables, a lot of hours sitting in chairs, a lot of time in despair, a lot of time being encouraged. I've had an incredible amount of people telling me that I'm wasting my fucking time, and I've had quite a lot of people have been encouraging me. Actually, one of the biggest things that I think is stands in the way of somebody trying to do what I was doing was pure financial support, you know. You know, I mean, thank God in a way, 1998, I was already in medical school, so I managed to qualify in medicine, and using the money that I had from my medical career, you know, at one stage I was locuming, and I think I was really earning $1,000 a day. So I was able to use that money to go over to America, you know, and do two different separate week-long trips to America and several weekends in Australia to complete the journey training course, which helped me with this was an incredibly supportive environment where I saw lots of people who were dealing with their emotional issues and getting trained to deal with emotional issues. You know, and really a loving, supportive environment by people like Brandon Bayes, Kevin Billett, and hundreds of others, you know, Skip Lackey, you know, Joe Doyle, you know, the names go on, Bill McLeod, Deborah Day, you know, like Margaret McLeod, so many people who had done years of training in self-care, you know, who had been through all sorts of various different situations, you know, and had to kind of find their way home, you know, to a self-respecting self from this fucking world, you know, that tells you that, you know, that you have to be, you know, sort of like up at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning in order to survive, you know, it's fucking load of shit. Excuse my language, but it's almost appropriate. Like the bullshit that people tell you, you know, it's just unbelievable. You know, no, I mean, it's just psycho, eh? What people will tell you that you have to do in order to be even trying to succeed. You know, it's just full of fucking shit. You know, like, yeah. So anyway, you know, thank God for Brandon Bayes. Thank God for Kevin Billett. Thank God for the journey. Thank God for my sister Mary and her husband Colin, who spent so much time kind of, you know, into acknowledging the emotional pain, the problem. Because one of the things that I couldn't see was I only knew the me that I was behaving as, and so I didn't know that there was a better me. I just knew that I wasn't succeeding. I wasn't, you know, able to do life. I wasn't doing life, and you know, I wasn't succeeding. I was sinking all the time, and so I couldn't put a finger on what it was exactly because I hadn't really had big experience of myself floating rather than sinking. I had a very brief experience in 1998 after I started doing some grief counselling and went on a grief weekend and started to talk about the death of my dad. I had a very, very strong experience of coming down into my body for about 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe a few more than that. I can't remember, but I really had this huge experience of suddenly coming into my body for that period of time, and knowing what it was like to have the full use of my body, like to be connected to my legs, to have my legs do what I want to do, like when, you know, it was really weird feeling, but it was quite I was still quite depersonalized because you know, I hadn't really maybe processed a lot of this stuff through my heart, so I didn't feel that I deserved to feel as good as I felt. So I was kind of struggling to understand how could I go from being, you know, almost disabled to being suddenly really enabled overnight. You know, like it happened literally over the weekend. I think I had a massive headache for about 3 days, and then suddenly this huge shit, you know. But I think what I had to do is there's a lot of hard work that I had to do to kind of integrate. But I did get a glimpse of what it was like to be almost like a normal person, to have normal functioning, to be able to run fast, you know, to be able to, you know, to be attractive, even to be able to kind of stand in my own container. You might say I'm using a kind of a reference to Richard Rohr here. He talks about the containers in life that we build, you know. But But basically, yeah, I had this massive, homecoming journey to do. So yeah, from 1998 through to now, lots and lots of different forms of therapy. Training as a journey therapist in 2007 to 2009. Finishing qualifying as a doctor in 2003. Moving to New Zealand in 2005. Having me and Kathy having Roman in 2011. June 2011. Stopping drinking in 2011. That's been a biggie because I've had 9 years pretty much alcohol free now, and minus the binge drinking alcohol. Of course, I've had to. I've been open to experiencing what I'm feeling. I've managed to connect with my own feelings. I haven't been creating so much chaos in my life, and so in the absence of chaos, I've been able to stabilize. Everything isn't all up in the air all the time. So with less balls in the air, there's been a reduction in the amount of adrenaline that I've needed to draw on any given moment. So little by little, my life has become less adrenergic, or less kind of fight or flighty, less about surviving, and more perception. I've been capable of observing more, capable of reduced reaction, and then capable of taking on more feedback from people. And one of the biggest feedbacks, of course, was losing my job in 2013 in the hospital system. So there was this staggering amount of feedback that came with that one. And I went to well, around the same time as I lost my job, I went to a psychiatrist who actually managed to relax me to the point that I was sitting there having a chat, and we were talking about everything that had been happening and how I was trying to save this patient in the hospital. And after about an hour long conversation, and I noticed that the therapist, who was Steve McIver at the time, just seemed to be kind of drawing back from me, and kind of just listening and allowing me to talk. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I just said, I said, do you think I really cared about that girl we were multiple girls, I was trying to say. I said I didn't care about her. I just wanted to get my dad back, And as I said it, I realized, wow, this issue, this grief issue around the death of my dad is bigger than I thought. It's still like, I wasn't, what I actually said in that sentence was that I wasn't actually interested in trying to save the patient. I was trying to bring my dad back, and obviously my dad was dead, so he wasn't going to be coming back. So, but either way, it just showed me that the problem wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't that I was trying to be a hero and trying to save the girl and being an amazing doctor. The problem was that I was carrying baggage, and that I hadn't dealt with this baggage enough. I had dealt with it, but I hadn't dealt with it enough. I was dealing with it, but not fast enough. And so I realized that, oh, here we are. This is why I've got a problem. And so when I lost my job, at least I had some idea of why. I knew that I still had anxiety. I knew that my eyes weren't straight. I knew that my toes were still a little bit of a gap. So I knew that I wasn't, down home in my body. So I knew that I was still dealing with anxiety. But the thing I didn't know was how much, and so how bad was I? And course, I wasn't going to get reference that until I kind of came out of that level of anxiety down into a lower level of anxiety. Then you can look back in retrospect and go, oh yeah, right, that's how anxious I was. So yeah, losing my job and finding my faith at the same time. So 2013, almost as soon as I lost my job, it just dawned on me that as I was struggling to deal with my family situation, having no money, a very angry Kathy, Roman's mom, and a very frightened Donovan. So who comes into my life? Only Jesus, really. Somehow the film Jesus of Nazareth stuck in my mind. So I'm believing that God actually said to me, look, time for us to start talking to each other. Yeah, and like cross, which I hang around my neck all the time, pretty much. Yeah, so I popped down into my body. Oh no, it didn't pop down into my body for a long time. Yeah, just Jesus of Nazareth seemed to be a really good way of helping me to calm down. Yeah, I could watch Jesus of Nazareth 10 minutes, 15 minutes of that movie, and I'd be back ready to go back into the house and help out with Roman, who was only 2 at the time, and it was winter, so it was big stress, Kathy was really throwing it, losing it, and I needed to be there for him. I could feel it, so I was actually capable of being there for him when I watched something of Nazareth movie. I calmed down. So I started going to church. First, I think I was at Harborside, and then I ended up in City Impact Church and gave my life to the Lord 18th of August 2013, got baptized. And then it's the last 7 years has just been basically hanging on to Jesus, literally. Some couple of people in City Impact suggested that I just keep my eyes on Jesus, particularly Teacher Tony. And one other guy who's gone now from City Impact, who's gone to life, but I don't remember his name. But just some really encouraging people just saying, look, I know what you're talking about, I know what you're dealing with, keep your eyes on Jesus, and like I would come up to teach Tony time and time again over the last 7 years, Tony, this problem, Tony would say, what are your eyes on? And I go, on the problem. And he'd go, well, what should they be on? And I go, on Jesus. And he'd go, there you go. So I'd have to turn my eyes back onto Jesus again. Teacher Tony would sing, turn your eyes upon Jesus, from the song by who sings that song? Turn your eyes upon Jesus. The Newsboys do a version of it. It's not originally their song. But so 7 years of church every Sunday, 3 times on Sunday, sometimes every Wednesday night, some fasting, just doing various different jobs, trying to keep myself alive here in New Zealand, trying to keep my relationship to some extent together, even though me and Kathy are in separate houses. Just kind of gradually getting, I think Todd White has been amazing. Shine Television, Rima Radio, what else? Radio, Star Radio, Life FM, but mostly Star, Rima teaching programs. Shine Television, mandatory viewing nearly every evening. Joyce Meyer's 700 Club, Joel Osteen, some Charles Stanley, a lot of Chuck Swindell in the afternoon on Star teaching. And there's another guy, Charles something else, from the People's Church in Toronto, I think. But he was a big part of my life, but I can't remember the name fully now. Joyce Meyer's like amazing, just Joyce was shouting 15 years of sexual abuse and, a pretty rocky road into ministry. But Joyce has been amazing. She's just been an absolute shouting from the top of the hill. Jesus will help you find your way home. She's been amazing. Bobby Schuler, another person, beautiful, soft manner. The Shack, the movie, absolutely amazing. Then the Shack, the teaching series that William Paul Young has, on YouTube. There's a 20 episode teaching series, 30 minutes each or something, and I just love the way that guy talks about how God had always appeared to him as being a very far away God, but that the reality of God is that he's a really close, personal God that wants to get right inside your life. And literally, this God that wants to get close to you, that wants to hug you, that wants to kiss you. I want to hug my son, kiss my son, love my son, let him know that he's loved. This is the way. I love the way William Paul Young talks about that. How he explains the reality of what God really is like. He's not this pissed off, angry fucker in a distance, which, a lot of people are sold this concept of God. He's going to get you, he's after you, he catches you sinning, and he's going to fuck you up, and it's like, fucking shit. It's just fucking bullshit. It's a fucking lie. God is a loving father, who, like in the prodigal son, he wants to come running. He wants to run towards his son who was dead, as he said. He was dead and now he's alive. He's delighted to see him. He doesn't give a shit whether he's repentant or not repentant. He loves him like a father loves a son. It's like, this is the reality of who God is. I'm so sick and tired of hearing these scary people fucking scaring people off and telling people, oh, God's going to catch you with a big stick and you're going to go all down to jail and it's going to be all dark and fucking boiling oil and shit. And even if it might be, if hell is where that is, well, Jesus and God are very interested in helping people to not go to hell. That's what they're primarily about. That's why Jesus died on a cross, allowed himself to be killed on a cross, because he wanted to actually save us from this hell. It's not that he wants to divide people into sheep and goats, and I know that he does divide people into sheep and goats. That's what it says in the Bible. But I don't think that God's sitting there looking forward to the day that he divides people into the sheep and the goats, and and the great fiery fires of hell that people just absolutely love preaching from pulpits all over the place. It's just absolutely criminal. I'm so sick of it. It just makes people not want to be in church. I think in Ireland I have the Catholic Church, and you've got the mumbling priest up on the altar who's basically all dressed in black, looks as basically as depressed, as if everybody in his family died every single day of his life. And it's just not attractive. Nobody wants to go to church to hear this shit. It's just like miserable. Jesus died on the cross. He's still up there on the cross in the church. There's no suggestion that he rose again from the dead and that he's alive, that he's thriving, that he wants us to thrive. He wants us to be happy, that we're supposed to be allowed to laugh. That it's just not talked about. It's fuck. It's like a fucking old folks' home. Most of the churches that you go to, predominated by people that are sitting there being absolutely miserable, dark, dreary churches. They're called places of worship, and there's nobody's worshiping God there. They're just, to me, they're worshiping a dead cross. They're worshiping a dead body on the cross. They're still waiting for Jesus to rise from the dead, and he rose from the dead 3 days after he died. It's just that message hasn't reached the Catholic Church. I don't know. I don't know where the idea of celibacy ever came from. Possibly because Paul didn't marry, and a lot of the apostles didn't marry. But there's a line in the Bible where Paul says a bishop should only have one wife. It doesn't. Jesus didn't say that somebody shouldn't get married. It doesn't say that. And certainly in Mindcenter, from what I've experienced, it does nothing. It does. It doesn't. It's not that it does nothing but harm, but it certainly has done a lot of harm in the Catholic Church. All the sexual abuse scandals, and just basically grumpy priests, grumpy nuns. From what I can see, mostly grumpy priests. My mom and some of her sisters got plenty of experience with grumpy nuns as well. And I don't think, Jesus might have been grumpy one day when he came into the temple, actually, and I'm not surprised why. I think if he came into any modern church, he'd probably start throwing things around. Like, so pissed off at the misrepresentation of the nature of God, But anyway, yeah. So anyway, this article where I started to realize that I was disconnected from this body that I have, and I started to reconnect. Realized that these fingers haven't done anything to earn my criticism. They've been working well for 53 years. I haven't really had any problems. Hands, wrists, elbows. You don't get an elbow joint like that too easy in a factory. Shoulders, knees. To go through my whole body, and like I just suddenly realized, what am I so pissed? Why am I so negative? Why would I possibly be so negative about myself? And that's actually really helped me to kind of come down a little bit into myself, and I've been able to. I noticed I'm able to walk a bit faster, a bit straighter. My coordination is better. My handwriting is better. Driving is better. My talking to people, I'm more sensitive to what I'm saying to people, more sensitive to what they're saying to me. Less stressed. So thank you, Jesus. I'm so grateful, to God for everything. I've got this cross around my neck to remind me of the presence of God in my life at all times, and I also have a lamp lighting over here as well, which helps me to just remember that God is sort of within sniffing distance at any given moment, so I'm just going to say a prayer, I suppose. Maybe I don't feel like I should ignore God if he's here. Dear Lord, thank you for helping me. Thank you for your mercy towards me. Thanks for considering that I'm worth saving, worth connecting with. I'm going to try and trust you more and more, because I think that's what you want me to do. You want me to trust you and not to focus my life on money. I'm trying to make money, not to be afraid. I know that's what you said to somebody who died and went to heaven for 30 minutes. Just trust you. Out of trusting you, I'm finding that I'm wanting to be alive. If I can trust you, then I can trust you with my life, with my plans, or trust you to give me your plans. If I die to my own plans every day, which I'm trying to do, just kind of surrender my own plans, lay down my own life, and make myself available for whatever you want to do with me. I'm hoping, Lord, that I can just get closer and closer to you every single day, and walk with you rather than separate to you. Literally, so I can do your will every single day, not my will or not anything else. But I'm learning. It's a bit of a learning curve. Learning to trust. So big T, learning to trust big God, and really just I feel like I'm managing to get this time with you, just talk to you, and to become intimate with you, like forming an attachment bond, like I read in the books. like just attaching to you, physically, even, that I can physically stop worrying about things and just have a constant place in my day for you, and that I can do life with you and do everything that you want me to do, become everything that you want me to become, and that hopefully will allow me to become everything that I need to be for happy and well-being. Yeah, so it's it's new, it's a bit new. I'm used to being completely unconscious of new thought. I'm used to being completely, uh, unaware of you as a as a as a living person, that I could actually talk to. Yeah, I'm so glad for the picture that girl Anna Karina or whatever her name is painted. Young girl painted, giving me a concept of what you actually look like. Your eyes, your green eyes, or your kind of green blue eyes. Your full of skin face. Just get a sense of what you might look like from her painting. I get a sense of somebody that I get a feeling of permission to actually, cling on to you. Which is very new for me, maybe as a son, as a boy who didn't have a dad around, to be able to cling on tight, it's a nice feeling. Yeah, like a physical interaction that I've never had, very soothing to my body. That's my little video for today. I'm just going to pop it on the head now. Thanks for tuning in.